Welcome back to SourceFed. I'm Steve Zaragoza.
And I'm William Haynes.
Around 11 a.m. yesterday morning, two assailants opened fire in San Bernardino, California in the Inland Regional Center. 14 people were killed and 17 were wounded. As of this report, there is no clear motive from the shooters, but according to officials, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment event. The two suspects, 28-year-old Syed Rizwan Farouk and his wife, 27-year-old Tashfeen Malik, were shot dead inside an SUV, which officers pursued in a high-speed chase through a neighborhood with Tashfeen shooting at officers while Syed drove. One officer was wounded, but his injuries were not life-threatening.
According to crowdsourced databases that compile mass shooting data based on news reports and 4 or more people killed, this marks 355 mass shootings since January. And according to the New York Times' data, there are more than 1 mass shooting events a day in the U.S. President Barack Obama addressed the shooting by saying, "It is possible that this is terrorist-related," and adding, "Right now, it's too easy," he said. "We're going to have to search ourselves as a society to take basic steps that would make it harder, not impossible, but harder to let individuals get access to weapons."
So, guns. Yes, right now it is too easy. The New York Times has an article titled "How They Got Their Guns" in answer to the recent shooting, and also referring to general criminal history in the U.S. In the article, they go into detail about how criminal histories and documented mental health problems didn't prevent at least 8 of the gunmen in 15 mass shootings from obtaining weapons. And federal background checks led to the approval for them to own these weapons. Now, what does that last sentence mean? It means the steps in place currently to allow a potentially dangerous individual to buy a gun are flawed.
President Obama said himself, "It's too easy." So what do we do? For example, in Australia, the government urged their people to hand over their guns, and they did. Why? Because a mass shooting happened in 1996, and they just decided, we're done. 12 days after that incident, the Australian government enacted sweeping gun control measures. A massive buyback occurred at the heart of the movement that saw 600,000 semi-automatic shotguns and rifles being turned in, which was about 1/5 of all the firearms in circulation in Australia.
And not only did they also prohibit private sales of weapons, but they also required everyone to present a genuine reason to own a firearm. And self-defense didn't count. Public support for these measures rose to 90%. And what happened next was the subject of many academic and psychological studies. Gun violence didn't come to an end, but homicides by firearms plunged to 59% between 1995 and 2006. The drop in suicides was steeper, with 65%. But the most stunning statistic was there hasn't been a single mass shooting in the country since.
Australia isn't the only part of the world that has all but eliminated mass shootings. Japan has virtually eliminated all shooting deaths, with only about 2 gun-related homicides a year. In 2008, the US had over 12,000 firearm-related homicides. Japan had 11.
But why? Well, probably because it's actually kind of hard to get guns in Japan. First, you'd have to take an all-day class and pass a written test. These classes are only held once a month. You also have to take and pass a shooting range class. Then it's off to the hospital to take a mental health and drug test, which then gets filed with the police. And finally, you have to pass an intense background check for any criminal record or association with any criminal extremist groups. Then you can have your shotgun or an air rifle, but that's it. Oh, and you also have to provide an actual location of where your gun will live in your home, as well as the ammo, which has to be locked in separate locations. Oh, and the police have to inspect the gun once a year, and you have to retake all of those tests every 3 years.
Sounds extreme. Pro-gun people probably don't want to go through all of that to own a gun, but the statistics don't lie. There's a problem in the US with the process of obtaining guns. It just can't be denied anymore.
And honestly, thoughts and prayers alone aren't going to fix that problem. This is going to require a massive overhaul to governmental protocols and centuries-old documents. I'm talking about you, Bill of Rights.
We can talk all day about how, who, what, where, and why, but the truth is, at this point, we should really only be focusing on when. When will we figure out something in regards to gun violence that works? Only the future will tell.
Our sympathies go out to those who were affected by the massacre yesterday and before and into the future, and we hope that this will be resolved soon. I'm Steve Zaragoza.
I'm William Haynes.